I'm Tabitha Rock.
And I'm Sam Davenport.
Born and bred in Melbourne, we live and breathe property, and we know the Melbourne market like the back of our hand. We've both been buying and selling real estate in Metro Melbourne for over 2 decades combined, and we've learned a few lessons along the way.
Unique New York.
Yeah.
Unique New York.
Or she sells seashells by the seashore.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Well, that's a lovely intro to our new podcast, Property Culture Podcast with Kayne Conway from
Ibbotson Moscatelli.
That's correct. Yeah. Thank you.
I always
Tax
say
accountants.
tax accountants.
Mhm.
Yes. Is that all your firm do? No
Uh,
financial planning?
We don't do financial planning ourselves, but we do work closely with a few different ones. So
Yeah.
it's certainly something that, we can point people in the way
In
of
the
if
right
not do
direction.
ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, I feel like so many accounting firms do have financial planning in-house and mortgage broking, and I'm not
Yep.
sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think there are pros and cons of both. There's
Yes.
a few not so reputable operators doing that, I think. Who,
Yeah.
Right.
But certainly we like to work closely with both mortgage brokers and financial planners and property advocates as well. So,
Right.
we're certainly not looking to line our own pockets from doing so.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
sometimes it's good to have a one-stop shop, and then other times you just don't get enough different perspectives on how to come at problems or find creative solutions. Creative solutions is a term I love to use when I call my accountant. But this episode, and we've got you for part 1 and part 2
Mhm.
because we think that it was worthwhile to just speak to owner-occupiers
Yep.
that are buying property for themselves, things to think about, and we'll cover lots of things. And then we'll get you back again and we'll chat through a few things from an accountancy point of view for investors.
Yes.
Not that any of them are in the market in Victoria anymore, but obviously we can buy all over the country.
Yeah, but we might even touch on, things about getting rid of investment properties, maybe investors who have multiple and what they can do from that perspective as well. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a two-parter.
Yeah, 100. And we just want to
Yeah.
hang out with you more.
Oh, that's great.
I know.
But I think, so when a client comes to us, and we deal with probably 80% owner-occupiers,
Yep.
in all honesty. That's our main market. But they've typically got their finance sorted. That's one thing that we want to make sure that the clients come, they're chatting to a broker or a banker. But one thing we don't ask, and should we ask, is, hey, have you consulted your accountant? Like, do you want to be a part of that conversation with your clients if they're thinking of purchasing a home for themselves, or really like, nah, I'll just see you at tax time?
Look, in most occasions, it's not essential,
Yeah.
but I would certainly much rather have a 5-minute conversation with them, have that chat, and get an understanding of their broader situation to know whether or not tax is going to be a problem
Yeah.
or a potential issue. Because broadly, for the home that you occupy, there's no income tax applicable to that.
Yeah.
But depending on what your short-term, long-term plans might be, there may be extra things to discuss and to know about. So I can never have too much information about my client. The more I know, the better better place we are to give them good advice.
Because I guess with buying your principal place or a home you're going to live in, there's not really too many considerations around what you should buy that property in, like the name.
Correct.
Is there?
Well, fundamentally, it needs to be an individual's name,
Right.
to qualify for the main residence exemption.
Yeah.
It has to be in your name.
Okay,
Like
so-
you and your spouse's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to be cheeky, maybe it might be in your spouse's name, not in your name.
Oh, well, look, and it's not even a matter of it being cheeky.
Okay.
It being in your spouse's name is something we would often recommend from an asset protection perspective.
Okay.
So if you're a business owner and you employ staff, or you have certain more risks than a regular employee does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The general advice would be that it would be in the spouse's name, so as it's to add some asset protection to that.
So hypothetically, if that business folded or you got into a legal battle through that business and they're sort of after you for everything you've got,
Correct.
and you in the eye of the law don't have that asset.
That's right.
Yeah.
But how does that work from finance perspective? So if you need both incomes to get the mortgage, can only one name still go on the title?
No, it's often just viewed as, okay, it'll be in one spouse's name, but they will look at the combined income.
Right,
So
okay.
it shouldn't have any impact on that front.
Yeah. That's a really good point, I reckon, to bring up for an owner-occupier, for any sort of couple and people who are buying together, and one is a business owner and, you know, your next 5 years or 7 years, which is generally the term that we recommend people own their property for as owner-occupiers at least, or investors, I guess, as well. But if you're thinking that your business is going to double, triple, have some form of, and maybe you've got business partners involved, particularly, you know, making sure that you're transferring it into that other name, if they're trustworthy, of course.
Oh, well, you can get legal documents for all of that, can't you, Kayne?
Yeah, there's lawyers that can help you out with
Yeah.
And charge you a bucket.
that. Yes.
Do you find that most of your clients, just talking about business owners, are business owners, or are they just sort of mum and dads? Are they starting out in their career? Are they
a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Which is one of the things I like about the business is that, it's anything from mum and dad running a fish and chip shop on the corner to people.
Don't talk to us about fish and chip shops, Kayne.
Oh, actually, I forgot about that. To people running $20, $50 million businesses or just salary and wage earners. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we typically find that most of our clients are PAYG young couples.
Yep.
Obviously, we get the downsizer, which I think that there is probably, is it maybe more of a consideration to contact someone like yourself to speak to their accountant if they are downsizing? Is there sort of more considerations at that time of life?
I think for a couple of factors. From a tax perspective, yes, there are some options available, and similarly, you would expect at that later stage that, okay, if I'm downsizing, you're going to be freeing up a decent chunk of money.
Yeah.
And all right, what am I going to do with that? How should I invest that? Should I spend it all on a cruise around the world, or what do you want to do? So
should I give it all to my kids as early inheritance? Tax implications there.
No issues
just
there.
Gifting.
Gifting cash is not a problem.
I don't know where I got this from about that there was a tax implication on an inheritance, or
it seems to be a common thing that people think that now, depending on what you're inheriting,
cash from a property sale.
If the property has been sold and it is simply being passed to you from the estate,
there's nothing.
Entirely tax free
from the estate.
But what about if they're still alive?
Yeah. If the person sold property, they'll be that's the taxing point. So the government will get their money from the property sale if there is any tax to be paid.
If there is.
If I've then just, you know what, I've got $2 million because I've just sold that property, I've paid my taxes, and that's my after-tax amount of cash. You can distribute that however you'd like
to Tabitha and Sam.
Yeah.
Right.
Your new adopted children.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm up for it.
Yeah, fine.
But so tax implication on that sale would only be in reference to if it's not their principal place of residence.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we do work obviously with a lot of young couples, but we also work with a lot of elderly who are moving into homes.
Yes.
So they're oftentimes selling their asset in order to pay for the home.
Yes.
But in some cases, we have had people who are umming and ahhing about whether now is the right time to sell the property or whether they should sell it after they've moved in, once they can sort of, for example, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So just do one thing at a time, move into the new place first, then sell. Does that nursing home or, retirement village become their principal place and now they're liable for tax on the?
Generally not. So
if
you've moved out of it, there is a window of time. The rules are reasonably sensible in a lot of time. Not all the time, but often they are quite sensible in that, you know what, you do have a window of time that you can then subsequently sell that, and and it's not, and you can only ever have one main residence that you own for tax purposes, but you don't have to be living in it necessarily. You can have moved somewhere else and still treat that as your tax main residence, even though you're not living there. So,
right. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I've got a lot of friends whose parents are retirement age, and that's probably who might be listening to this podcast, probably not their parents. But and I've often said to them, hey, just chat to an accountant, chat to a financial planner, because there's a few things like, if you sell your principal place of home and you can clarify all these details that you've lived in for X amount of years and you're in retirement phase, you can move, I think it's now 300,000 into super from those profits.
Yeah,
so what's the factors of consideration? So do they have to not be working anymore, or can they still be working?
No, it can still be working. It's just an age-based thing. So if you're over 55 and you need to have lived in the property for 10 years or more, I'm pretty sure it is.
And that's the laws as of January 2025.
But again, it's
I mean, a lot of them
they
have,
might change.
though.
They've changed this in 6 months' time.
Yes.
So I mean, the rules were different a few years ago. It's actually a bit easier to take advantage of that downsizer contribution now. It was a bit more restrictive. I think you had to be a bit older, and so you can put $300,000 in each. So up to $600,000 if you and your spouse, it's you and your spouse's name. So look, and I think that's potentially a really good way to get a boost to your superannuation that goes in there. And
so $300,000 per person whose name's on the title. So that goes back into another consideration for those people who are putting the property in the spouse's name.
Yeah.
So maybe it's worth that type of person transferring the title into both of their names
Well, it depends. Well,
but then they won't have been considered to have lived in it for 10 years.
And again, this is where these sorts of circumstances, it's really important to have a chat to your accountant, because the rules are there, but everyone's circumstances are always unique. So you kind of making sure you tick all these little boxes.
Well, these
can save you a bit of money.
Well, Or to be able to put 300,000 into your super early, or 600. That's a massive consideration for people who are buying at 45. One is and that's exactly why I think it is important for owner-occupiers to have the conversation with their tax accountant.
Well, I think so. This scenario is what maybe a lot of people are going through. I think my friend's mum was like 60 or 60. She was still working and she was selling the principal place that she'd been in for 10 years. And I said, you should think about this 300,000 that you can put in super now, because you can still get like a small loan for the new home. Is that right?
Oh, again, it's going to come down to the lender on that front.
Right.
There's certainly no restrictions from a tax perspective.
Yeah.
But
because it might be more beneficial, like popping that money into super. Can you only do it once though in your lifetime?
Yeah, you only get to take advantage of that downsizer once.
Right.
I mean, it would be tricky that you need to have lived in it for 10 years. So
Well, but you do 50 to 60, 60 to 70. There's a few opportunities there.
Well, as the rules currently stand, you only get one bite of the cherry.
Right.
But look, and again, this is why having that full view, that chat with your accountant when you're purchasing that property. Yeah, it might just be your main residence, but how old are you? How much superannuation do you have? Are you planning on? Do you want to leave it to the kids, or you're going to know I am going to downsize? Because I know from personal experience that grandparents are often hesitant to downsize because they want to have somewhere for the grandkids to run around.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they want to downsize because they don't want the grandchildren just dumped all the time.
All that.
Yeah. And on the other end of the spectrum, so we've just chatted about downsizing and downsizers and consolidating sort of post 50. For first home buyers, is it you, or is it more a broker or the finance person that chats through a few of the government incentives? Like you across that in terms of property?
Yeah, I'd say that's more the mortgage broker and property guys like you that tend to be more have more information on that. My job tends to be to make sure you're giving the government as little money as possible, not looking how the government's giving you money. So.
Yeah, we love that, Kayne.
Yes, we want to give the government.
That's a really key point, because their incentives are, to my view, often very minimal. Like $10,000 here or there.
That's not
it's not life-changing.
Purchasing.
And oftentimes it comes with so many parameters for their decision-making that it's forcing you into a decision that's unlikely to get you the right growth anyway. So
this is the government incentive.
Yeah. So in terms of he's saying like you'd rather talk to your clients about how you can save them tax money rather than trying to get the 10 grand from the government for the incentive, coming at it from that mindset and that perspective. I think for younger first home buyers, they do get confused. It does look very shiny and new to see those government incentives, and they think, oh, great, this is my in. This is how I'm going to get in, which is what they're there for, to incentivize you to buy. But having those conversations with you and working out, their actual position, and maybe if they just wait a little bit longer and, the predictions for the property market are this and and coming at it from a more holistic perspective is probably more helpful.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that if only call your accountant just as a pause point. So you're not rushing into it. Call your accountant, have a chat with a buyer's advocate, a builder, an architect, chat to a few different people, slow that process down because, it's a costly exercise. And it's not something you can undo.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't go, oops, I accidentally bought that property. And,
oh my God, don't.
To then sell it.
Yeah, within a 12-month period. And the stamp duty, my God.
Yes.
But it's also getting people, or particularly young, I think, older generations have learnt this lesson through living. But younger people, when they're making these big financial decisions, don't listen, or you can listen to what Aunt Sally says at the barbecue, but you don't need to take it for gospel. I think understand your team around you, lean on the professionals, and really be critical thinking in the conversations you're having with them. Let Aunt Sally tell you what she thinks for sure, but don't make decisions based on those types of conversations. You want to be checking it with professionals in the background as well for yourself.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine in that. So a client will walk in and tell me that they've been. I got told that I can do this and claim that, and it's like, well, who told you that? My plumber. Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
But again, and that what that advice might have been correct for the plumber.
For the plumber.
But he's got different circumstances to you.
Exactly.
So
mind you, I don't mind that sort of thing because at least then it sparks thinking and conversation. Because a lot of people just don't ever chat to their accountant.
Yeah.
So it is good to just call and ask the question.
Oh, well, if you've ever got a harebrained scream, you've got to call up, don't you, Sam?
And
I know.
Okay, so we've chatted first-time buyers, we've chatted downsizers, and we've chatted about that sort of more around the start of their journey. With the end of their journey around selling a property, do you think people should chat to their accountant in that moment as well? Is it important? Are there any considerations to be had? I mean, obviously there's a consideration to be had if you're over 50 and you're just at 9 years of holding that property. Maybe a conversation of holding it a little longer.
Again, it's probably not an essential conversation, but again, I'd love to have that 5 or 10 minute conversation around, well, is there going to be a period where, all right, hang on, I'm selling it, but then I've already bought one. And is there going to be an overlap? Is there a delay? Have I bought vacant land? Have I been holding on to that for a little bit before I build? There's a few of those factors that can cause potential issues. So it's unlikely that I'm going to be a key part of the process if it's just the home that you occupy.
Yeah.
But again, if you're selling it and a couple of those other things have happened, it can cause some issues. So better to have had the conversation than not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just in terms of when you're looking at sort of trends and future outlook, like market dynamics from your perspective, are you seeing any sort of trends with owner-occupiers at the moment in dealing with their accountants, or is it more so from we'll ask the same question when we're talking about investors as well. But are you seeing sort of any sort of shifts in how your clients are dealing with their purchasing at the moment?
Not so much from probably more just a general caution.
Yes.
I think from interest rates of sort of holding a bit higher and longer than everyone, I know I would certainly prefer.
Yeah.
And I think and look, prices are high and they've probably cooled off. They've cooled off in some areas depending on where you're buying and selling.
Yeah.
So I think that there's just an overriding kind of caution and hesitancy,
uncertainty.
Probably just people just sort of sitting there and waiting to see which way the wind blows. And
totally.
Not be the first one to jump and
not realizing that when they do that, when they get blown, they go with the crowd.
Little sheep.
Now you're all making the same decision. Go alone. Jump off the bridge. Be the one.
And if you want cautious advice, speak to your accountant,
Yeah.
right? They're the
Well,
most
yeah.
conservative.
I'll be the one to talk you out of most of your ideas.
Would you say you are conservative by nature?
I generally, yes.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I've called you with a few crazy ideas and I haven't heard you talk me off the ledge. But anyway, and I think as we keep saying, and we actually said this off camera, that there is a lot more benefit in chatting to your accountant around the investment,
Correct.
property
Yeah.
investment,
Right.
buying decisions, because obviously there's tax minimisation,
There's a
all
lot-
those
yeah,
things that we'll chat about. But one of the common scenarios that we find with clients is we've got this young professional couple, they're living in the tiny Paran apartment that they've had for 3-4 years, and they are thinking about upsizing, buying the family home, and they're not sure whether to keep that property as an investment or to sell it. Is that a conversation you get into, or is that more a financial planner? Is that more a mortgage broker? Like, do you sort of help people forecast, okay, well, you've got one kid, you're now getting the second, your repayments, if we base this purchase price on this, will look like this.
Yep.
Your income's looking like this. Is that what you do, or that's
Look,
really?
We're probably, again, a little bit of a part of that cog. As a tax agent, I can give tax advice and I can give general sort of cash flow forecasting and so forth, that type of stuff. But if your accountant's your accountant out there, unless they hold an Australian financial services license, they're not allowed to tell you that buying or selling any investment is a good idea. You're not allowed to give investment advice.
Yeah.
But
can you base it? If you're giving, are you giving advice if you're basing it on data and like?
Well, again, it's one thing to say, here I've done an analysis of the numbers, and again, I can look at
and give it to them.
Review things from a tax perspective. Okay, you're talking about, all right, if you're going to rent that apartment out
and hold it for 3 years,
and this is the rent you're going to get, and okay, how does that look is that negatively geared? What's that going to do to your income and the tax? It's certainly a worthwhile conversation to have on those side of things.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I always am like, sell now. It's awful being a landlord.
And yet, every time I say to you to sell one of yours, you're like, nah.
Oh, I'm in too deep now.
I'll hold it.
I'll hold it. No, but I think people just think that mentality all the time, where I've got good properties that have gone up in value, whereas that little apartment in Paran, what's the long-term investment look like?
With no car park and no outdoor area.
Yeah, that
Get out of it.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It's worth now what you bought.
I've been a landlord and it can be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It can be a dream and it can be horrendous, and it's just so dependent. And that's the problem, is that you're actually not in control of that outcome.
Yeah.
So that's what's so difficult about it.
Yeah. But I think that the mentality of people is always like, hold real estate, that's what our parents say. But that's not necessarily the best way. So the key takeaway here is, if you are in that situation, looking to upsize, looking to get the family home, do chat to your accountant. Do have the conversations around whether to buy or hold.
Yeah.
Sell or hold, because it's it can be
and
pretty interesting.
Jeff's right. It is that old-fashioned thinking of never sell property.
Yeah. And interestingly, though, that piece of advice is very generalised comment here, but that piece of advice is generally coming from parents or boomers or older age brackets who are referring to freestanding period homes on full-size blocks in Parkdale.
Yeah.
That you should hold.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got that right now and you've had that for more than 10 years, I'll bet you've done very well on that. And in the next 10 years, you'll do very well again. But we're not referring that as we always talk about, the property market is many, many, many markets within it.
But
And
even
it's not
that
relevant to
discussion, talk to your accountant about what the implications are for holding it for another 10 years when you don't live in it, because what does tax implications look like? And so the growth and all these different things. But anyway, we've touched on a lot of things.
Yes.
Hopefully that was helpful for the owner-occupiers with us in your ears. But obviously we've got our last segment that we love to do.
We
Sam?
love it. I don't know have you ever heard of F, Marry, Kill?
I
The
have
concept.
heard of it, yes.
You know what it
I
means.
forced him to listen to one of the podcasts.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
I wanted to know
Which
what I was
one
getting
did you
myself
listen
in.
to?
The Architect.
Rose
Oh,
Architect.
nice. Yeah.
Yes.
One of our most liked
guest. No,
episodes,
you'll
I'd
be
imagine.
our new
No, most like
like.
episodes.
Oh.
Okay, so who do you like working with the most?
Mhm.
And
Is
what
it-
are you effing? What are you killing? And what are you marrying? Like
Yep.
the long term, love them.
He's like, I get it.
Well, it's also for the listeners.
I know. Busy professionals close to retirement age.
Mhm.
So maybe a single or a couple close to retirement age, or expats.
Okay, so the busy couple and the close to retirement are two different ones.
Busy
Yes.
professionals.
Oh,
So
yeah. Busy professionals are sub
meaning
40, 30 to 40
they're
years.
in that real run
stage
stage of
wealth
life.
creation stage, but they've got multiple kids, they've got multiple things. Maybe they're
You can-
PAYG, maybe they're
Yeah.
business owners.
You can kill the expats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just painful. Yeah.
Yeah, painful.
Well, just
Oh.
because the Australian tax system's complex enough.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
Everybody- I don't
the
know
US
the-
tax system
probably
and the
US.
How
Yeah.
grateful I am to just press Australian
Yeah.
citizen.
Oh,
Every time you need to. I'm like,
same.
oh, I know that
Yeah.
eliminates so many questions. Yeah.
So then I'm effing or marrying a
busy professional or an older
Oh, God.
couple. What are you doing? I hope your wife's listening.
I'd probably go marry the professional couple.
Okay.
Obviously, you got more years to make money
Well,
off
that's the
of.
thing.
But that's also your peer. You know,
Yeah.
would you say that there's something from that
But look,
perspective
yeah,
as well?
I think that actually works out quite well
Yeah.
because I'm someone I can work with for 20 years.
And what are you going to do
And-
to the older couple? Excuse me, Kayne?
Well,
Kayne?
I know.
well, they'll probably give.
You're effing them. Tell the people, Kayne,
Well, yeah, I'll
Stanley.
have to, because you know what? There's probably a lot going on
Oh,
there,
yes.
but again, not.
You're happy to have a
There'll
one night stand
there'll
with
be a
them.
short term.
Fling.
It's a short-term process with them. And
Yes.
that is.
And there might be a lot going on in that short term.
Yes. But that's that is the thing about the sort of the people who are in, like, let's say our phase of life, like the building
Yeah.
phase, right? My dad always says to me, he's like, you'll never make more money than you will between 30 and 50, Sam. Like, run. I'm like, okay, Dad. But it's that from your perspective, you know, in many ways, you could have that client for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a long, slow-ish burn, and there's just so much advice that can occur between now and then. And I mean,
they'll go through different stages.
exactly. And like the relationship building of a 40-year professional relationship, like
Amazing.
that's pretty amazing. Yeah. Anyway, we've loved having you.
Loved.
Thank you.
And see you back for part
See you for
two.
part two.
Can't wait.
Should we change our outfits or should we just roll on?
We'll mess up the hair. Okay.
All right. See you for
Thanks
part
for
two.
listening.